Hi, and welcome to Power of Food to Heal. My name is Karen Quirk, and I'm your host for this video series. And what we talk about on this series is how to have health, vitality, and peace of mind that you're doing the right thing for you and your family. So today we have a very special guest, and her name is Naomi Aldort. Hi, Naomi. Say hello.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Welcome. And I'm excited because this is a little different than the rest of our series. Naomi is a parenting expert. So we're going to be talking about issues that come up with kids and as they're growing up from infant to adulthood, actually, and issues that might come up for you. So I think it's going to be really helpful for the show. And I'm so glad you could be here, Naomi.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And I'll just tell you a little bit about Naomi, and then we'll get into our discussion. But Naomi is the author of Raising Our Children, Raising Ourselves, which has been published in 17 different languages. And she does phone sessions, workshops, speaking events all over the world. She brings peace and deep connection to families worldwide. I love this quote by you, Naomi. It's, raising powerful humans requires that we pamper less ego and empower more self-reliance, authentic being, and the freedom to fail. That's very impactful. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Kind of the summary of everything. Maybe we can cancel the interview.
There we go.
But, you know, emotional resilience doesn't come from pampering a person, from making it easy for them, from rescuing them from issues, from preventing every difficulty that shows up. I'm not saying we throw a person into the water when they don't know to swim, obviously not. But we want to provide the opportunity to learn to swim, and we want to provide safety until a person can swim, walk, do music, whatever they're doing, relate socially. So there is a tendency these days for parents to come from fear. The fear of kidnapping is the overall umbrella, but it's the fear that the child won't be happy, the fear that the child won't be successful. We have to enter this enormous competition, you know, to be a good parent. My child has to become a doctor or a lawyer or a successful business person or a star, or, you know, look at YouTube. It's very unhealthy what's happening with, you know, children being displayed. Without their permission. Here and there you see children who are honestly and authentically into it. But there is a lot of very, very high expectations that get not only in the way of how they will turn out and combat what we see now as an epidemic of anxiety and depression in young people who are going to college or starting life, because their life was just too easy. We forgot to drill them also in suffering. And we don't have to drill them. We don't have to invent it. We just have to stop preventing it and thinking that the best childhood is one that's free of any issues. So we're disconnected from reality when we say that that the child has to be, you know, happy all the time, and we try to set things up for nothing ever goes wrong. And then when the child wants something, we become almost panicky in, let's get him this, or if they can't get it, or parents can't get what the child wants, immediately compensation. You know, well, we can't have this, but hey, you can have this. But that's the same thing, because what it teaches the child is you don't have the emotional capacity to handle real life, in which you don't always get what you want. It doesn't always go your way. And yes, there are falls. So we need to make them, like the quote is saying, to model and support them in acquiring. It's not, you can't give it to them, but support them in acquiring resilience in the face of what life is. I call it not escaping the storm, but learning to dance in the rain.
Not escaping the storm, learning to dance in the rain. Okay, so yes, the rain will come.
Exactly. You can't prevent it. And that's why it is so important to engage with children through life rather than raise them in a bubble. And to some degree, I myself made some of that mistake. Inside our bubble, I was doing things pretty good in terms of empowering, but I still had a bubble. I still was somewhat anxious about influences from outside and all, you know, children interacting with the community, learning about what's going on out there that's really disgusting to my opinion, or this or that. Instead of that, I recommend I'm not saying, again, you don't throw the non-swimmer into the water, but you get them in a community within people who are, a little more on your path, but don't have to be completely. So you don't go extreme, but you need community for children, and to worry less about those bad influences. And when there are some bad influences or things you think you wish your child didn't learn from this person or that person, if your relationship with the child is one of trust and connection, you just have a talk about it. You raise a child who will share with you freely what their experience was, and you talk about it, and you assist them through conversation to find their own path and to find what's right for them and what's wrong for them, and also recognizing their limitations, what not to expose yet. I'm never saying, hey, take your 6 years old and show them, drugs or murder or anything like that. So we're not throwing a child into the water without being able to swim. But we can empower and go with them through logical things that they're interested in a way that empowers them to handle it rather than run away from it.
So how do you find that balance? How does a parent start to find that balance when maybe, we're doing it wrong already and,
Well, there's no perfect parenting.
No.
And there's no doing it perfectly right.
Mm-hmm.
And when I give a public speaking events and I can have 1,000 people or 30 people or 100 people or a few hundreds, and I always get the same response. I stand in front of the audience. First question I ask, raise your hand if you had the perfect parents. And once in a while I get one hand up. It's usually a male. Somebody with this sense of loyalty to the family. They're supposed to say their parents is great. By the end of the workshop, their hand will not be raised up.
Really?
Honesty and truthfulness about the fact that no parents are perfect, and that's all right. It doesn't make them less, and it doesn't mean we don't love them. Then I ask another question for which I never get any hand up. Any of you turned out perfect, or do you know anybody who turned out without any issues, without, like this human being whose life is like easy and never a problem? Never. No hand is going up on that one. So then I ask a simple question. If you don't have perfect parents, and if you don't know anybody, and you didn't turn out perfect, and you don't know anybody who turned out perfect, as in no issues, no difficulties, to go through, then you coming here to this workshop or my talk, usually expecting to learn something to raise your children perfect, how come you expect to be the first parent ever who would raise the first child in human history who had no issues? And it's really those issues are the grist for the mill. It's what we're here to work on. So in pregnancy, we get the genes and the food and the influences of our mother's emotions and chemistry. And we don't say it's wrong if it's not, that kind, but it's this kind. Then we have 18 years or 20 years of being in the womb of the family.
Yes.
And the influences of the family, the community, the growing up. And that too is what it is. And that's the material with which we're going to work on ourselves. And isn't that, most people find that, going and working on yourself, whether you do therapy, meditation, yoga, go to seminars, become aware, read books. Everybody is here to self-actualize the best of who they are and to heal whatever wounds became present on the way here as to adulthood. Not to not have them, but to have the skill to dance with them, to heal them, to connect through them, to use them for living an ordinary life,
right?
A human being life, without the competition to be somebody unique and spatial and all this burden that parents do on their children, telling them that they are this star,
right,
amazing person, no one like them. It's just not true, and it sets them up for depression, for anxiety, for I can never live up to those expectations. can you see the relief of knowing, no, I'm going to grow up and have some issues because my parents have some issues, and our entanglements will create and breed the next issues, and I'm going to have things to work on. It's just the way it is. There is no wrong about it.
Right. And like you said, that's a lot of pressure on a child. And we do find now that the statistics are that kids are depressed. Like you're saying, there's more suicide rates, that is going up. And
Yes.
so, obviously there's something going on. I know most of the series is about food and healing too. And we had, we won't need to go into that as much, but you agree that even in the womb, what the mom is putting in,
yes,
it's important, and be better to have the clean food, like you said, calmness, meditation.
Yes, not
That.
only that, but actually mental issues can be created and solved by what we eat.
Mhm.
Not solved only by what we eat.
No.
We have to deal with the actual issues, but the actual issues are there for our unfolding. They're there for a good reason. But we need to stop raising unique, spatial, one-of-a-kind human beings. That expectation is a huge, scary burden.
Yeah.
That's why I invite parents today, please, please raise ordinary people who can live life, face themselves, and don't think that they have to be somebody better than somebody else. It's also not good for society because there is nobody who is better than somebody else or lesser than somebody else.
That's wonderful. No matter what area of life they're in, if they're privileged or not privileged, in between, all over the place, right? I mean, it's the
We
same.
are all privileged to be born.
We are privileged to be born. That's exactly
And
right.
there is nothing else that needs to divide us. And if we ever divide based on anything,
Yes.
that's just mind-making stories.
Mm-hmm. So that parent connection with their child, so it starts at birth, and then like we were saying, if you already have children that are in grammar school, say, or they're in high school or even college, what would you tell parents? We talked about communication. How do you start that communication with?
The beginning of my book has the SALVE formula, SALVE, that I really recommend to learn and to practice. And the most important part of it is the S, doing the work on yourself. And going inside and seeing why you are seeing in the child what you're seeing. So in other words, what we see cause us to go to kind of negation and war and conflict with the child. And if you look inside, it's really our stuff. The child is, I have a YouTube video called The Child is Right. And what it means and what I say there and I'll say here is the child always have a valid reason for their behavior. As adults, it's our duty to find what that valid reason is rather than negate the child. So what cuts the relationship between parent and child, so I'll talk about what does damage, what creates the disconnect is that we negate them. So the child hits their brother and we say, don't hit their brother. That's negation. Okay, that did not connect with the child who is hitting, who shouldn't be hitting in terms of we don't want the other one to be hurt, but has a valid reason for why he needs to hit. So we need to address the need. We need to be as leaders in the child life. We need to create such that that child doesn't need to hit his brother anymore or sister. Not tell him don't do it where he hears, but I need to do it. They don't know it consciously, but they're driven and they're told what you're doing is wrong. And usually they hear, mommy loves my brother and not me. So it's very, very painful. So I work a lot with parents about siblings issues because that's really a big one where parents really go off track. They have their own reaction. The little one is being hurt. They really want to stop it. So they're in both places of protecting the little one, but they forget about the second place. Also, finding what's going on for the big one, the older one, the one who is hitting. Sometimes it's the younger one too. because for someone to hit someone, they have to be in horrible agony.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're aware of the cause and effect or not, as children, they may not know what's going on, but notice the agony behind it. Oh my God, this child may be so jealous, feeling displaced, feeling like my life with my mother and father is gone. Every morning, oh my God, this baby or toddler is still here. I thought it was a temporary. No, you know, my oldest son,
Mm-hmm.
after years of already having his brother, one day he says to me, you know, I think the experiment is over. We should get rid of him.
Very intelligent.
And that tells you so much about the mind of a child who doesn't, you know, who is so sure my parents love me. So there's a good side to this particular child sentence. He's so sure he's the one, and that we brought him a brother. And then, you know, it's like, you're caring for me, so this isn't working for me, so let's end it. So, but we negate our children, you know, eat this, don't eat that. That's why I say when it comes to food, only have healthy food at home.
There you go.
At the same time, don't be fanatic. Have some other stuff that's not perfect. Or when you go to a party or whatever, don't create all this anxiety around what one can eat. But at home, have 100% organic, healthy food, whole food, that's real food, and model that. But it's just so important to not negate, to not just keep saying the child don't. So like in the case of hitting a child, I know the parent who is listening to this is up to the next question. So what do I do?
Right.
So well, first of all, you take that child, give him a hug. Say, I see that it's really hard for you to have your brother here. You know, next time call me and I will take him so that you can play by yourself. He's probably hitting him because he ruined his blocks or stepped on his picture, or, you know, it's like he didn't choose to have a baby in the house or an older child, doesn't matter the ages. And we can't make babysitters out of them unless they want to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying to pay for it, but unless they want to be with each other. So the first thing I would do is, I mean, if the little one is hurt or something, I may remove them, but they're not hurt in a deep way. Mm-hmm. So the moment I get them to a safe place, give them a kiss and give them a banana to eat or something to do, they are fine. But the child who was hitting is not fine. Mm-hmm. That's the one who needs love. That's the one who needs to know, because the moment they did it, they already feel guilty. They know it's not right. Mm-hmm. So if you're also angry at them on top of it, now they're feeling like mom and dad don't love me. They only want the baby. I'll never amount to anything. I'm a bad person. How many of us adults still have that record playing, destroying our lives, mm-hmm. and giving us insecurity, depression, anxiety, and total, you know, pain and a lot of harm to our next relationships. So yeah, you would hug the child. You would tell them, you validate their feelings. That's the V of the SALVE formula. After you worked on yourself and you're able to be loving authentically, and you tell them, I see it's really hard for you to have your brother. Would you like to show me what you like to do to him? Or depend on their age, just to tell me, to draw it. If someone else can be with the baby, you can take him to another room, give him a doll. I have a chapter about that in the end of my book. Which is, by the way, 19 languages, not 17.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, that's great.
Anyway, and bestseller in quite a few languages. So, you know, I would go with a child to another room, and not if I can't leave the other child alone, but if I have the opportunity, and have them, and if not, do it later. Mm-hmm. I hand them a doll is one system, and or draw, or depending on their tendency and how verbal they are. And you say, but let's say a 4 years old, show me on this baby what you want to do to him. And God, I had one of my children say, I want to throw him to the garbage. And we went together and did a pretend throw the baby to the garbage. Mm-hmm. You know, after we did this session, he loved his brother even more. Aww. He had such release. You know, they want to know, because if we oppose them, then they feel not only they have the anxiety of the jealousy, thinking that they've been displaced, like you brought a new husband or your husband brings a new wife and say, hey, you wait your turn for sex. We'll see how, your emotional makeup. So not only is having that problem, but then he feels guilty about it.
Exactly.
And if we don't tell them, it's all right. I know how you feel. I've done things like that. We all sometimes do the wrong thing because of strong emotions. You can always come and tell me. I'll help you. If your brother disturbs you, I'll move him away. And try to arrange life such that the brother wouldn't disturb. So don't leave them, to babysit the younger one. Even if they're teenagers, they hate to have to drag their 6-year-old with them everywhere they go with their friends. But some parents say, hey, you have to take care of your sister. No, don't do that. Because it kind of ruins their life and gives them a message they are not good enough and they have to devote their life to their sister or brother. And you want to honor and respect them and their space. When you want to take a break, you hire a babysitter. When your teenager wants to take a break, be with their friend. And if you want a break at the same time, hire a babysitter.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And then be really careful of expectations. I teach not to praise and not to give rewards or evaluations because those create anxiety and expectations. And not to nag kids to practice or do their homework because we're telling them that they are our project. And we, in order to be loved by us and approved by us, they have to excel. They have to do the right thing. Let them fail. For God's sake, we have too many A's and not enough F's. In college especially, but in school too. When I counsel families, when I talk to the kids, if they go to school, a lot of the families I talk to, their kids are in free schools or homeschooling. But not all. Some of them go to school. And I would say to the kid, when you go to school, study well what you enjoy and really interested in. The classes that you're not honestly interested in, do a passing grade.
Wow.
Just so that you can move to the next grade, because that's how you survive in this system, in schools, and to move on if you want your opportunities open. Not because it's important. And some of them just take their kids out of school when they realize, this place is just creating more competition, more evaluation, more stress for the kids. So, some kids can stay with it and somehow are all right, are very, very strong and can do it. But some of them, especially the best students, become pretty dependent on always being the best and pretty weak emotionally in the ability to be ordinary people. And they fall on their face later on, most of them. And if they don't, I worry about them even more. Because if you keep climbing the ladder successfully, the fall is not only going to be better when you're higher, when you fall, if you fall. So expectations with very young children, pushing the child ahead of themselves. He should already know to say please and thank you. He should already know to get dressed by himself. No, he shouldn't. Maybe technically he's able to, but if his emotional state or her emotional state is still such that I enjoy mommy doing it for me, give it to them. You're going to miss it anyway.
Yeah.
It's so tender and so beautiful. So a lot of times when we push children ahead of their achievements to achieve even more, thinking we're doing good for them because they will excel, we're creating emotional issues and the price is not worth it. And they will excel just as well or more when they excel at their own time, when they reach that turning point or progress on their own terms, and also when they do the subject matters that they're honestly interested in and not something else.
Because there's different talents in every person, and some may be good at math, some may be horrible at math, and that's a lot of pressure, but that's unfortunately how the system works, almost because they had to make it that way.
And they don't even need math. Today, how many people need math? I mean, yeah, it's a brain developer, but so is music, and so is gymnastics, and there are so many subjects now that one can do. I can tell you a very interesting story about the famous pianist.
Sure.
I won't mention his name for confidentiality. He was giving a concert in a CD in a big concert hall, and there was a big audience, and a friend of mine was in there who was also a piano teacher. I'm also a piano teacher.
Okay.
So, but she was there, and she was teaching very advanced and also dealing with the psychological barriers to performing with emotional freedom. That was, she wrote books about that, and really an amazing woman. She's not alive anymore, but really amazing. On my website, there's some information about a book of hers. Anyway, so somebody told this pianist after the concert to talk to her, and she was a good friend of mine, so that's how I know, because she told me what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And at this session, this pianist discovered that what holds him back from being fully expressed on the piano is he still has his mother with him on stage supervising.
Oh, wow. Mm.
Emotionally. So he said, oh, I'm still, bound by, am I pleasing my mother? She used to be in his lessons. He studied Suzuki, so it's like very mother involved, which I don't recommend Suzuki for many reasons. The praise, the stars, a lot of good things about it, playing by ear and lots of good things, but very harmful other things that I don't recommend. So that was the case for him. For years, he was doing Suzuki, and his mother was present and mingled in his progress and what he was doing. So that was his discovery. So when I told it to an audience, and this is actually the punchline, somebody raised their hand. In fact, there's always a few that raise their hand and say, but if the mother wasn't there and pushed him like that, he wouldn't have become a great pianist. Mm-hmm. And I said, first of all, if he wouldn't, that means he shouldn't have in the first place. Uh-huh. Then he was being a pianist to please his mom, and something else he was supposed to be was never actualized, which would make him even more tight, eventually very depressed, because life is not where he really was. Right. If he's really talented in music, and I have 2 of my 3 sons are musicians, professional musicians, so I went through dealing with talented music kids, which is why I give advice to parents on that. I'm not saying you don't support them, but if he's really talented, he certainly doesn't need the mother involved the way that this famous pianist had his mother involved, because then it's their own motivation. They really want to. They may need some support. They may need you to pay and drive them to the lessons, maybe write some notes if you're at the lesson when they're really little, but then get out of the way and let them have a relationship with the teacher and be in charge of their practice. Ask them if they need support, reminders, schedule the day in a way that works for them, give them opportunities to perform, the teachers usually do that, but if there's some other opportunities, and the kids, like one of my musical kids at age 7, after 1 year of lessons, said, I want to experience what it's like to be a musician. Rent me the concert hall, I will give a concert. Pretty shocking, but that's what he said. So I did that. So my husband and I were out there, we rented the hall of 213 seats, which almost filled up. It was a cover story of the entertainment section of the newspaper, and lots of people paid to get in.
Nice.
And I accompanied when he played cello and he played piano, and that was at age 7, his first recital. So that's something he wanted to do. And he did that a lot. He's now a member of the Boston Symphony. The other one is a pianist and a composer in Seattle, doing very well as well. And our third one is not a musician and doing well in other things.
Sure.
And wonderful human beings. So just don't think I need to push them in this direction because they said they wanted to be a doctor, so I'm pushing them to do the math so they'll be accepted into the school. They may want to be a doctor to please you, or to impress someone. Right. And the best lesson for them to learn is, if they're not accepted to medical school, okay, I guess I didn't do what I needed to do to get to medical school.
And then they might not be the best doctor at that point then,
Yeah, or whatever it is, or lawyers, or business people, or pharmacists, or whatever it is they want to do.
Sports is another thing, like, the kids are really, I think, pushed in sports that maybe they were forced into a little bit, or maybe they tried it and, they feel like they have to do that for their dad or whatever. That's
exactly, to not disappoint the parents.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the threat of disappointing the parents or the teachers, mostly the parents, lays over their head like a black cloud. It's very hard to live with.
Yeah.
And, and
Play, whether it's sports or piano or anything, let them play, give them the support, and then you'll know if
out of the way. Get out of the way, and I actually tell them that you don't care. You're there to support them. You don't care if they will become a conductor. You don't care if they would become an athlete or a dancer or whatever it is. That's their thing. You're going to support what they want. You're not supporting a certain path. Supporting who they are, not by pushing. So you don't push a toddler to learn to walk, and you don't push a teenager to study something they say they're interested in. You provide, however, and you provide, for example, if they want to be an engineer and they want the math lessons, don't just assume they can do it on their own. That's very difficult discipline.
Sure.
So providing a teacher, and let the teacher do the disciplining in terms of how much homework you should do every day, what you should study by when, so that there is a support system, but it's not you, the nagging machine, that creates animosity between the child and you.
And you don't want to be that nag. No, I agree. I can see that, how easily that can happen.
Yes, and the praise and the rewards create the same problem.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm so good at this. My mother said I'm so good. My father said what a success I am. Now I have to keep at it. And can I? And I have lots of stories of, there was in a workshop, a guy told me that, I think it was his son. Yes, he drew like genius drawing at like age 4.
Yeah.
And the parents, when he drew a realistic horse, the parents went out of their way with a woo-ha, look at what you can do. He didn't draw again.
Oh, wow. That's sad.
Smart. Yeah, it can be that bad. Sometimes they continue to please you. Sometimes they free themselves. They say, well, I'm out of here. I'm not doing this game. If my drawing is for you and for your evaluation, I'm out. That's what that child did.
Yeah.
So that's a loss for a talent. Now they pushed him to become a pianist instead. And then we have the story, well, but otherwise he wouldn't have become a pianist. No, he would have become an artist or a horseback rider, or, something that interested him. So it's very important to not praise, to not reward, to not evaluate, to not make a fuss whether they succeeded or not, whether they won a competition. What I said to my cellist son, the one who is in Boston Symphony, on the way to a competition that he won, a national competition at age 13, I told him on the airplane on the way to Toronto, that's where it took place, I said, and he won 2 levels before that, state and regional, and it kind of goes in a few stages. And I said, I want you to know that it doesn't matter to me if you win or not. With me, you won by being you. And to my delight, he said, I know. But even that wasn't enough. At later ages, it turned out he still was thinking that I want this for him, in spite of all my attempts. So it shows you that you really have to almost be disinterested.
Wow.
To really get, I have an article called Getting Out of the Way about that. And also 3 articles about the price of praise that I highly recommend to understand how damaging praise is. I also have a CD in the set, Trusting Our Children, Trusting Ourselves, that explain the harm of praise. But those articles more say what to do instead.
I think that's fantastic. It's really something that we need, and it's hard to do as a parent, I know. So it is very hard.
Well, we've been indoctrinated in the last generation or 2. It's like, good job, good girl, good boy. And it's like, we wouldn't like that anyway. It's patronizing and insulting.
Yeah, we don't like it as adults, right? Going in a different direction a little bit, we have a lot of special needs kids today, sadly, and parents are tired, exhausted, you know, and it's difficult, we know, to do the right thing as a parent, to say the right thing. And
Right.
do you work with special needs kids at all, or is that a different way of being?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do, not directly with them usually.
Mhm.
I work directly sometimes with children, like when they come here. I just had family of 5 here. I do what I call a family intensive.
Oh, okay.
So
Hmm.
they come and they stay here for a few days. We have an apartment where they have their own space, and we spend many hours together every day. We eat together, we walk around, take hikes, we do things so I can see the dynamics of the family and guide them on the spot and have lots and lots of sessions. So those are mostly the times that I end up, doing things actually directly with the children. And sometimes with families who the parents take a lot of session, a child would say, when my mother or my father talk to Naomi, then they treat me better. So then they say, I want to talk to Naomi. So they come to Skype and have a session with me. But remind me what the specific question with the spatial need. Yeah.
Special needs, yeah. And because, and even in terms of eating or sleeping enough, like the behavior, you know, they want to eat just one thing, you know, say it's peanut butter and jelly and milk and nothing else, you know, that kind of thing. And there's textural issues, you know, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of reasons behind that. So I
Yeah.
know parents are frustrated in that arena too.
Yeah. And what I teach, I usually don't work with the children most of the time, but with the parents.
Mm-hmm.
And my discovery again and again, no matter what the disability is, that in principle, it's not any different than any other child in terms of what we do.
Okay, good.
We still have to provide healthy food, not have in the home what's not good for them, provide the modeling, find ways, smoothies are some great ways to
Mm-hmm.
to sneak in all the foods that the child maybe won't eat.
Sure.
So there are many ways to take care of these things, but in terms of the mental and the relationship, the principle is the same. And I think what's more difficult is for the parent, not for the child.
Yes, for
The
sure.
child is inside themselves, being themselves, seeing life from their point of view. But the parent needs even more of that total acceptance. A true leader follows, doesn't control. Make
Okay.
life be such that the child can flow with what's going on rather than encounter obstacles. It's not about helping them where they have special difficulties. It's about finding where they're flowing and where they have difficulties and really make the flow drag the difficulty with it.
Beautiful.
It's like if you get to the middle of the river, the sides move too.
Yeah.
River is always a great teacher, so I often come back to that model. So I'm not saying not to do anything. There are sometimes things you need to do with a child, and I always, and again, and that this is true for all children, because I find
Right.
that special need children really benefit from doing physical things and training their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they are somewhat disabled, getting
Right.
it
Mm-hmm.
more, it develops confidence. So swimming and sports and dancing and karate and, rings and swinging a swing and diving and, doing the kind of things they love to do. And arts too, but that's not the physical. The physical is really such an enhancement because the child, especially a special need child, is like a lot in present and in their body.
Mm-hmm.
And if we keep having those expectations and aspirations, so there maybe with this one, we're not saying they will be a doctor or a pianist, but we may have a vision that they would be a normal person or a person that can operate, and maybe they're not going to be. And where they are is perfect.
Perfect, right?
It's like we don't try to turn a dog into a monkey. We are fine with the dog being a dog with their limitations. We need to apply this to human beings. Each human being, not just spatial need, is a species in his own way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Doesn't make them spatial unique, but it's a species, is their own world, and they're unfolding. So the difficulty is to do the same things that I teach with the spatial need child with even more awareness, respect, and reverence to where the child is and to join them on their path.
Mm-hmm.
So if an autistic child is is moving their hand over and over again, sit with them and move your hand too, and sing a song and make a thing out of it. So yeah, it's all right. That's what we do, because in his world or her world, that's what we do. When you join them on their reality, they will then be easy to be drawn into your reality. Not in the same session, but at some other time, you're doing some movement, and eventually they do your movement. And
Wow.
your idea of life, or eating the way you eat. Just take it on their terms and join their reality, and then you can dance together in the rain.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I think we're probably getting close to our time, and I'm sure there were plenty of questions we didn't get to cover, but I think you have all your resources on your website. Can you tell us about that, Naomi?
Yeah, and let me before just tell you one summary to help the listener.
Awesome.
The bottom line of everything we said is that we want children, no matter who they are, to be rooted in themselves.
To be rooted in themselves, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's self-direction. So when a child needs something, he becomes independent and confident when he knows how I feel inside is right. So if they want to sleep with you and you say, no, you'll be independent if you sleep by yourself, no, you'll be lonely, and you will learn to be dependent, not independent, because you learn, don't listen to yourself. Someone else will tell you what to do with your body.
What a good point. Yeah, really.
And that actually can lead to, and I symbolically and in real way, to molestation. I mean, we're teaching children, someone else knows better how you should feel, where you should put your body to sleep, or what you should want, etc. So it's really kind of the bottom line. I say, raise children who are rooted in themselves, which trust them, respect them. Your children are not your children. Like Khalil Gibran said so beautifully.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they're their own world, their life longing for itself, and you're privileged to be there and to escort it, nurture it, water the flower, don't open its petals ahead of time, don't paint the color. So with all that little summary, my website is either my name, naomialdort.com, authenticchild.com, authenticparent.com, not authentic parenting, authentic parent, in case you remember that one. My website is full of free videos, interviews, lectures, articles to your heart desire. And I have a lot more that are not published, but there's plenty there. There's a blog with some recent thoughts and ideas and links as well. There are also some CDs for sale. And the most important part there, if you need help, I give sessions in this way, Zoom or Skype. But some people prefer by email, some people prefer by phone. I do whatever you want. but I love the Skype one, and people also come over here and have their private time, or rarely I go to people's home. It's too expensive. Most people, I don't recommend to do that. It's a lot of advantage being actually here and seeing a different life.
It's great to have this kind of platform here.
But the day-to-day, some people talk to me every few days, once a week for periods, and then they stop, and then when they need again. And once in a while, you can also just call. I have shorter sessions for I just have a little question.
Yeah.
You can book 15 minutes and ask your little question. So it's all on the website. It's called Call Naomi. Press that, you get the information about that. Also, if people want to organize for their own community workshops, I try these days to do them while people can gather in a hall, but I'm on a screen rather than travel. But if I'm not too far, or if it works financially, I'm willing to travel. I just try to minimize it for the sake of the planet. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm 70 years old, so just
well, you
spare my body.
You're very energetic at that age.
I'm energetic, but it takes time, and I'm more energetic and healthier when I stay on our island, when I can hike and swim and breathe the fresh air and not be in airports. But I'm willing, depending on the situation.
Okay.
But I find that those, like the next one is in the middle of October. I do a workshop in Bratislava in Slovakia, in
Oh.
Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So my nights turn into day. You know, I'm doing the 3 days workshop. People there will be sleeping in some hotel, some resort.
Mm-hmm.
Come every morning and have a full day with me 3 days in a row, and I'm not leaving this room.
Because this information is so valuable. You know, you cannot fit it in a short 45-minute interview like this. So, and we have to keep looking at it because that's how we learn and absorb. But thank you for giving us the reminder that we are endowed with these beautiful children, that it makes a difference.
And it's always worthwhile. People say, you know, my sessions are not cheap, but you know, it takes a few $100,000 to raise a child.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And learning to do it well and to not create anxieties and emotional issues that are too overwhelming, and learning to give the skill to deal with those is worth your time and money. And many parents call and say, oh, I wish I called you sooner, because by then there is more work. You never have to regret that you didn't. I always tell parents, you call when you're ready, and that's what you work on. But just know that's my biggest recommendation is don't just sit on your questions, or be sure that you understand the answers by reading a bunch of books or listen to lectures. Ask the personal question. If it turns out you didn't need the session and you got it all right, at least you'll sleep well and do the right thing, but it never happened. There's always something new to learn. So I find that everyone that calls learns something new and realizes, oh my God, if I knew that, that would be so much more peaceful, powerful, etc.
And that's, you know, what we want for people, peace of mind that they're doing the right thing. So you've tremendously helped us here today, Naomi.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
you. So appreciate you. I'm going to end the recording now. And thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you again, Naomi. Love it.
Thank you, Karen.